Welcome to the EdTech Throwdown. Join us, Eric Geis and Nick Johnson, as we dive into today's best EdTech tools, tips, and practices. We do the research so you can teach your class. Remember to follow us on social media like Instagram, X, or Facebook by looking for the handle @EdTech Throwdown. Now please enjoy the show.
Welcome to the EdTech Throwdown. This is episode 182 called Using EdTech and AI to Personalize the Classroom. In this episode, we'll talk about how EdTech and AI can personalize both your classroom physical space and your content creation and delivery. This is another episode you don't want to miss. Check it out.
All right, we are back with another episode. I believe this is 182.
182.
And today's episode is really stemming from another conversation that we had in the old teacher's lounge. I mean, we don't really use it as a teacher's lounge. It's more of a copying place now. But this is where these conversations occurred. So I wanted to bring this to an episode because I thought that a couple of different conversations were going on between teachers that I heard and then I jumped into. So basically, with all the AI and the COVID days are now behind us, but we have all this AI stuff. Have we lost the focus of personalized learning for our students in the classroom? So really, we just got to break down this complex question. So during COVID, let's start there. Everyone was not worrying, but we were focusing on relationships and building relationships, getting to know our kids better, and just making sure that their mental health and well-being was okay. It was a tough time. And then right after that, we had the inclusion of AI, this big AI boom. And AI creates things for us, for teachers. And a couple of the teachers were mentioning how because they use AI, they feel like that the personalization piece of their content in their classrooms and things like that have gone, to the wayside. So, after hearing these questions and listening to the teachers, that really inspired this episode. So what we want to do today is we want to, first off, kind of talk a little bit about the personal connection piece. And if we think that is kind of decreased since COVID and maybe reasons why. But then we want to get into how we could use EdTech and AI tools to help personalize the classroom experience and personalize the content experience within the classroom.
Yeah, I thought this was a good one because as a high school teacher, we are not so much in the world of, the first thing we're going to talk about are ways that you can actually personalize your physical space. For us, a lot of the times it's just like, hey guys, we're getting in and we're going to do a do now, and then we're going to do the lesson and we're going to end it with practice or an exit ticket or discussion or something. And it's just all so content driven that we don't focus on the physical space as much. But I think there's a lot of ways we can grow with that. Maybe I'm just talking as the science teacher because our classroom spaces are also lab spaces. So maybe there's not as much like personalization of the decor that you can do. But I think there is a lot more you could do. I know when I go into some of the the language arts classes here, they're decorated very nicely, very peacefully with mood lighting and, Christmas lights and just all kinds of stuff. And it's a good vibe for sure. And I think especially the high school teachers who are listening could be reminded that this is an option. And we found some really cool tools here that can maybe help spark your own creativity to get this rolling. Give your physical space another look. I know when I was going through these and preparing for this, for sure I got pretty jazzed up. I was like, wow, I need to be doing that. And I like my classroom physical space. It is a chem lab, but I have student posters covering like every inch of the wall, and I think it captures what it needs to, but there's some really cool things out there that I didn't know about, and hopefully our listeners didn't know about either.
Right. And some of these, I don't know, tips, tricks, tools, whatever we're throwing at you today, I mean, some of them might be able to bridge the gap between, during COVID, we did provide each student a lot of attention in unique ways, whether it's breakouts, just checking in with them, seeing how they're doing, things like that, seeing what they're up to, what they're doing to fill their time, their personal interests, those types of things. Now, I feel like we're back to all right, here's a big ball of content. Let's shove it down their throats. Let's just do that. And I think we need to find that happy medium. And one of the easiest ways of doing it with not a lot of effort is the physical space. You can easily make a kid feel at home based on some of the recommendations we're going to make today. So we're going to make a general recommendation. For some of them, they'll come with some EdTech tools. We are not going to really go over the EdTech tools other than that they would definitely fit whatever we're presenting for that. All right, because if we went over every EdTech tool and what it did, this would be a very, very long episode. And we heard from the audience that they like to have it under 40 minutes if possible. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll take the first one because I think this is one that we do a good job of doing, but I just wanted to throw it out there, and that's interest-driven decor. So the first day of school, I always ask the students, I find a clever way to introduce an EdTech tool, which is Canva, and I ask them to create an About Me worksheet, basically. And it's saying your favorite hobby, your favorite, tradition, and it gives them a whole bunch of different things, and they have to find a picture that represents that. All right. And what they do is the center, so picture a 3x3 grid. The center grid, their picture will go there. But I never make them put their picture there at the beginning because I want people to guess who it is. See if they can guess who it is. And so once they guess the correct answer, as a class, we make a game out of it, and whoever guessed the most gets a lollipop or something like that. But once they guess the correct answer, that picture goes to that box. We just tape a picture there. I keep those students' posters, around for people to see, just so we can maybe, with some of the new kids, since they are in 9th grade, they can learn stuff about their peers and see who they have common interests in. So you could survey the students, and then you can find different ways to represent their interests in the classroom. And the one that I always like to do is the classroom norms at the beginning. I don't want this to be my rules. I want it to be our rules. So if for some reason, everyone likes the Phillies and the Yankees, maybe we'll put Phillies and Yankees symbols over this poster and list our norms around Phillies and Yankees, or maybe it's Harry Potter, who knows? Whatever it is, I try to incorporate that with the signage or anything that I incorporate into the physical space.
Similar to that would be a digital display. This is one of the ones that caught my eye. We mean if you've got a projector somewhere, and if that projector is on but not necessarily in use, there's ways that you can sort of capitalize on that. I know for us, when we go into one of our classrooms, the projector is often on, and it just kind of has this stock image, and it changes from time to time. Usually some nature photograph, which is cool. But we do have the option, and our projection tool is a thing called Airtame, where you can, connect your laptop in any room to the Airtame, and the Airtame projects. But you can choose what that image is. You can also have a rotating slideshow of images, and those images could be photographs of student work. So you're essentially taking this thing that's already there, your projector, your Promethean board, whatever it is, and then using that as another display spot for things the students do, whether it's artwork, just pictures of stuff that they've done in class, even just informal brainstorming posters that you want to feature because they did a really good job. This could be photographs of things happening in class that you take, periodically as students are working. Could be inspirational quotes. We do kind of a similar thing to this in our media center, where the projectors and the TV screens have a running series of pictures. And, we want those to look super nice because there's often presentations going on and different activity fairs in the media center space. So we want them to look good and professional. Everything's done through Canva, so it has some extra flair. You don't have to get that fancy. It can literally just be stuff that has happened throughout the year on those digital displays. If you've just got like a spare monitor in the classroom, maybe you can get that monitor hooked up to something that runs a slideshow of images from the class this year. I think that's a really great idea that a lot of teachers have these digital displays. They're just not using them for this purpose. So I like that.
All right. So going along with that, my kids come home with art projects every day, and I don't want to keep them all. I mean, there's just too much, too many art projects. My whole house would be filled with art projects. So
Right.
What we do is we take a picture of them, make a digital version with that picture, and then what we do is we put all the art projects in a box, and at the end of the year we have a burn party. It's the last day of the school year. We go outside, we use their art projects to burn, and we make s'mores. It's something that we've done. I don't know why the kids really like it, but
I know why they like it, because they're lighting stuff on fire. That sounds amazing.
yeah, so we do that, and they do like the s'mores piece, but they do like reflecting on what that art project was from. We learned about climate here. We learned about the galaxy here. But I was thinking in the classroom with the digital displays, what you could use is, if you're doing a particular project for a unit, you could have exemplars from the previous years going through on almost like a photo collage, or a slideshow, one in at a time. So it might be able to generate some ideas for those kids for that project. But I do like that. The next one's really, really cool. I have not explored it yet, but when I was doing some research, and we keep saying that we want to do more with augmented reality, but there's a tool called Quiver Vision, and they have like a trial, but basically Quiver Vision is used to create augmented reality wall displays. So students can scan wall art to see animations and interact with digital layers. So if you go over to Quiver Vision, basically you're going to print one of their coloring packs on the Quiver app. You'll color it, and then you'll scan it, and then when the students go around and scan that artwork, it will automatically animate it. So what I'm thinking is if the class really likes marine biology or the ocean or something like that, they could all take an animal from the ocean, and you could have a bulletin board that you can scan over, and that will animate the motion of a whale or a crab, going across the bottom or whatever it may be. I just thought it might be a fun one. I'm not sure if the older ages would enjoy it as much as the younger ages, but if you're an elementary school teacher, this one might be for you.
Man, the older ages are going to get in on that too. They're coloring book pages. Everybody loves coloring. I think the older kids would get particularly into it because they often don't get to do that. And then this extra layer of when it's colored, if they use that app and scan it, they can see the 3D rendering. These are what sold me on this as a high school teacher is a lot of their coloring pages that you can print are content specific. So if you're a bio teacher, they have an image of a cell. The student gets the calming relaxation of coloring in the cell and all the organelles, and then they scan it and they can see their cell that they colored. I don't know if we've driven that home yet, but like whatever colors you choose to put on paper, it makes those into the three-dimensional version. But my point here is that they're content specific too. So I think it's super cool just having a little corner of your classroom that's the coloring center, but it's the augmented reality coloring center.
All right, I stand corrected. See, you know how when some people take Benadryl, it makes them sleepy?
Yeah.
It does the opposite for me. It's like caffeine straight to the vein.
Okay.
All right. Coloring calms people down. For me, it makes me anxious.
Okay.
When I'm at the end of the last page of a chapter, I
Right.
get anxious for some reason. I don't know why, the last page of a chapter is the dreaded part of the book. The last page of the book is like the last page of the chapter, but on steroids.
Wow.
I don't know why, but I get very anxious when I'm about ready to finish things. But
interesting.
That's that. All right, let's get into our next one. Go ahead, Nick.
All right. This can be fast. Mood lighting. I know, most people's homes these days are likely set up where your light bulbs are all Wi-Fi connected. I know when I walk into the first floor of my house, I say, Alexa, turn on downstairs lights, and then the whole room pops up. If you haven't done this yet in your house, I mean, give it a look. It's just been so cool for us and really easy to set up. These things work really well. They take no training, and it's just cool and fun. Why not bring that to your classroom? I don't know why I've never thought of this, but you'd have to buy some of these special light bulbs or get your school to buy them, but they're often not much more expensive than the typical light bulb you're going to be buying anyway. And it can just make it super cool. Some of these things, these smart lighting systems, can change color. My initial idea was there's different lighting schemes for when different things are happening in the class. So if we're reading, maybe it's like a low yellowish, sort of a calming, quiet type of a light. Whereas if everybody's working in groups, it's like a brighter white light. If, depending on what's happening, there's a color scheme. Love this idea. Mood lighting in the classroom. Why not?
Yeah, I think it's doable.
Yep.
I was in my son's first and third grade classes yesterday, and I got to see independent reading time, and they have everything hooked up, and they say, okay, but they say, hey, room 127, it's reading time. And when they do that, the music playlist pops up and the lights go down, and it's really cool.
That's cool.
So let's get into the next one, and I think this one's equally cool. It's collaborative space design. So a lot of times we have desks in our classrooms, all right? But, some people have comfy chairs. Some people have carpet squares. Some people have bean bags. If you just have desks, how can we get more creative than just putting them in a 5 lines of 6 or whatever it may be, 6 lines of 4. So you could use something called Room Sketcher, and then you could have the students create what the layout of the classroom is. Are we going to have pods of desks pushed together? Are we going to have rows? Are we going to have a combination of both? Do we have carpet squares? Do we want to put those in there? Do we have bean bags? Do we want to put those in there? There are little captain's chairs that are independent that you can put on the floor, those types of things. But if you have Room Sketcher, you can really have the students design where the desks, the chairs are, the collaborative spaces are, and how everything is arranged. And I think it's an awesome way to get some student feedback on how they would feel more comfortable.
If you have your students do name tags at the start of the year, especially that classic thing with that little folded piece of paper, I say go for it, because that actually is super helpful. But you could make them digital. You could give it as an option to make it digital, or maybe design your own template so that everybody's name tag in a certain class looks similar, and then there's elements of it that they get to edit themselves. You could do this, of course, in something like Canva or Adobe Express as the two most likely and most popular free options for you to use there. But I like this idea. The only benefit maybe to the digital one is, ease of, access and creating really awesome looking designs, maybe avatars, right? Maybe you want the students to each develop their own chemistry classroom avatar for some purpose. And then because they're doing it digitally, you can let those digital tools take care of a lot of that for you. If you like that paper printout version, you can do that too. Have the students print them out at home, in school, if you've got that ability. Maybe they send them to you, or everybody puts them into a shared slide deck so that you can print them out if your students aren't allowed to print. And that way, if they're all in the same slide deck, it'll at least be easy for you to print, right? Because you're just printing from that one location. But that's another nice quick one. Just personalize those name tags by making them digital. Why not?
All right, so the next one is easily as equal to these personal name tags. I mean, digital soundscapes. I mean, basically music in your classroom. What does the music, what does the ambiance sound like in there? And I know that you do a great job using Spotify in your classroom, I believe.
Yeah, but I feel like a fool because I have the kids send me songs and I physically add the songs to Spotify myself. It takes me, I don't know, I was going to say hours, but that's a little bit over the top. It takes me a good hour to do everybody's songs, and I totally don't have to do that. There's a thing called Spotify collaborative playlists where you create this collaborative link, and then the kids can go in and add their own songs, which literally means I've wasted like 10 years of my time putting in all these things myself. We linked it in the show notes, but if you just Google Spotify collaborative playlists, it'll pop up with like how to do this. So if you are a fellow class playlist maker, you're going to want to check that one out.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do Spotify, you could do some of these extensions or like a YouTube channel or something like that. There's one called Noisy, Noisii, that will allow you to set background sounds such as like nature or coffee shop ambience type sounds. Our next one is a digital vision board. You could have students create personal or classroom vision boards using platforms like Padlet and FigJam, which could be displayed on a digital screen. So if you know that you're 2 weeks away from state testing and there are 5 topics that we need to go over, maybe you're projecting those 5 topics and the resources needed to check out in order to be prepared for those 5 lessons. And you just put those up. I know I used to like to give students an overview of what we were doing today and what we were getting into the next couple of days. So that would be a digital vision board.
Interactive check-ins. This is something that for me, I always kind of eye rolled. I don't know why, but I was like, yeah, whatever. High school kids aren't going to want to do that. Adults aren't going to want to do that. But I have to backtrack on this because I've been part of many training sessions where it begins with a digital check-in where everybody, I think the one I was in most recently, they used a tool called Miro. And Miro is going to be similar to like FigJam, where everybody's in this digital white space and there's different sections. And the first section is little smiley faces. And you're supposed to just like bring in whatever emoji represents how you're feeling right now. And I loved it, man. I got to tell you, I thought it was great. This particular session, this was for like a side job that I was doing, and it was very tedious and very annoying, and everybody popped in all these frustrated looking emoji faces, and it was weird how helpful it was for me to get to share that I was annoyed, how tedious this job was. And it took away a lot of that annoyance because it was out there, we all talked about it, and it was the check-in board working exactly like it was supposed to work. And I'm sharing that just because if you also eye roll things like check-in boards, maybe don't. I actually found it super, super nice. And I've done it in class from time to time. And I think the students appreciate it too. At least the ones that appreciate it. It's not everybody, but even if you're helping just a couple with that, can actually be super cool. And another tool that you can use for this is called Class Dojo, a very popular tool for elementary teachers. You've probably heard of it, and if you haven't, it's a great way to administrate something like this.
Yeah, and our last one are creating themed QR code stations. So if we create QR codes using a generator, I know Chrome has their own generator, Canva has their own generator. It's a button away now. It's very simple to do. You can use that link to personalize student projects. So a lot of times we make things digitally, these posters digitally, and maybe we don't want to print them out. Maybe we want to be more eco-friendly. So instead of printing out the big poster that has 15 pages that are all colored and stuff like that, we just print out a QR code so people can view them digitally. That would be a great way to share out student projects, fun facts, or just some of your favorite classroom activities.
All right, so that is what we came up with for like the physical classroom space. We're going to switch now and end it with more personalization, but this time more for delivering the content.
But before we do that, let's get into a brief message by Teach Better Podcast Network.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcasts. Now let's get back to the episode.
All right, so let's get back into it. How can we use EdTech and AI to personalize our content in the classroom? Nick, basically what we want to do here is we still want to incorporate student interests into classroom activities and into the content. If we can use a kid who loves cars, if we can somehow use cars to be the, bad pun, vehicle to drive the content, we should do that. We should meet the kids halfway. If they really don't like science, but they like cars, meet them halfway. Have the cars with the trunk open, and inside that trunk is a note card that has content on it. Will that keep them interested?
Yeah, not in all cases, but definitely in more cases. So this is very important stuff. One of the main things available to us now in 2025, as we are recording this, is these adaptive learning platforms, often the ones that use AI to give personalized one-on-one feedback, right? So your Khan Academies, where there's a Khan Academy tutor, AI tutor, trained on Khan Academy videos. There's a lot of tools that are incorporating this, like the IXL for math. Dreambox is another one. I've already shared before that I think this is the future of education, and we're just all going to be using tools like this probably in the near future. And that's personalized learning at its core, I think, because you're literally talking about each individual student getting what they need with that AI tutor. So huge fan.
Yeah, if the students can really learn to grasp a hold of that resource right there, a lot of the misconceptions that you might have when you're at home could be answered by the time you come to class. Most of the time, the students have to wait till they come to class, whether they remember to ask it or they don't remember to ask it, or if the teacher does or does not go over it. That's where things get lost in translation. So think about that. But let's take a step back real quick and just talk about the AI for a second. So a lot of teachers feel like we're losing personalization because we're using AI. My next one is AI-driven content creation. I have that rule that I always talk about, whether, for some people it's a 90-10 rule. You use 90% AI, 10% personalization. You change it to meet the needs of your kids. All right. As time went on, I'm more like 80-20, 75-25 now. All right. Because what I'm doing is I'm creating the content, but then I try to bring these interest-based pieces in. Or maybe it's a level or a challenge-based piece where some things need to be more challenging for a pocket of kids, or some kids need more support for a pocket of kids. I'm spending a lot more time on that piece than I am with anything else. And what used to take me an hour to do for a lesson to make it 3-tiered is now taking, 20 minutes to get the AI right, and then another 10 minutes to get the personalization piece right. So I'm still saving a lot of time. I still think that AI can be used in a way that allows a teacher and students to be creative, but also it does not lose the personalization. I think it just helps you get a framework with all the minutia that you have to put in there done, so you can spend more time on what needs to have more time focused on it, such as modifications for students. So use ChatGPT, use Copilot, use Canva Magic Write to help craft these custom lesson plans. And then maybe you're using something like Diffit that is going to level that material to fit the needs of your students, or quizzes to level the assessments to fit the needs of students.
Next up, we've got student-generated playlists. If you don't know, playlists obviously was like pushing out a list of things for students to do with different options, and it's very personalized at its heart. You can make that even more personalized by allowing the students to help you create this. I would do it on a smaller scale, so I'm picturing if I'm teaching about, say, types of reactions and maybe combustion reactions, the students' homework could be, okay, everybody needs to go find a YouTube video about a specific combustion reaction and how it's used, and then put that link on this shared Google Doc and have that ready to go for the next class. I would probably give them some things that have to be in the video just so I'm sure that it's like educational at its core and not just like something silly or pointless. But the next day we spend whatever amount of time you want. Everybody watches those videos, takes notes on them. They're seeing, you mentioned cars. They're seeing what the combustion reaction is that happens inside a internal combustion engine. And then somebody else brings up maybe fossil fuels and environmental connection. The point is, the playlist is being created by the class. Everybody's also inherently pulling in things that they're interested in and getting to share that with everybody else. Besides the fact that students are seeing like where combustion reactions are happening in real life. So I think that could be a cool way to set up a student-generated playlist as well.
Yeah, next up we have gamification of lessons. You can use the assessment tools that have gamification in it, like Bluekit and Kahoot, quizzes, things like that. You could also go over to one of the AI tools such as ChatGPT or something like that and talk about escape rooms. Help me generate an escape room based on the themes of the 1920s, focused on the book Great Gatsby. All right, and have it, as you get more specific, I need 5 different puzzles, all have different ways of getting in using content from the Great Gatsby, such as color symbolism. All right, it will help you make that. Then from there, once you have the idea, you're going to personalize it and make it your own, but it will do that. And gamification is huge, and it will save you a lot of time.
Similar to the adaptive learning platforms we mentioned at the top of this segment, you've also got a lot of individual feedback tools, particularly for writing. That's what is mostly available right now. So this is, the classic one would be Grammarly. Whereas the students are writing, they're getting suggestions and feedback on how to make that writing better. There's a lot of these, more and more all the time. Turnitin's Revision Assistant is another one. And it's just more of that personalized feedback. It's a no-brainer. This is the world we're going to be living in and working in the future. And school can be no different. I know English teachers get sometimes strong opinions about these in maybe one direction or another. The point remains these tools exist and are going to be a huge part of our lives. So as an educator, it's at least worth knowing that they're out there. Your kids are going to be trying to use them, and we need to think about ways to maybe make it part of our class, even just from an educational standpoint.
Yeah, I mentioned that I was in my son's classrooms yesterday. During reading time, one of their reading platforms is Epic. And Epic is an AI-assisted reading recommendation platform where it takes their interests and it finds stories that they could read based on their interests. And they have a lot of fun doing it. So using those types of AI-assisted platforms can help you tailor towards student needs. Also, another thing that you can kind of look at is project-based learning platforms. Platforms like PBL Works or Trello can help students design and track personal projects based on their unique needs. So our favorite out of the two is obviously Trello. We use this to manage all our large projects, things like that. And you can attach it directly to Google Drive. And all your student works can be in there. You could organize it by unit, and you could have students participate in a classroom portfolio and organize that through Trello.
We'll do these last couple quickly here, starting with virtual field trips. Just such a cool way to personalize. We've got a really great episode on that. So if you check our feed, you'll see an entire probably 45 plus minutes where we go over all of the different virtual field trip tools like Google Earth and Discovery Education and Mars Rover and many, many more. So if that sounds interesting to you, just go check it out. There are, differentiated assignments and AI tools to make this super easy. Obviously here we have to mention Diffit as our favorite and probably the best one, as well as just AI providing insights on student work in ways you might not expect. You've mentioned in many recent episodes one called Snorkel, where kids are actually writing on the screen digitally, making graphs, showing calculations. And Snorkel can analyze that and give them feedback on what they did well and what they need to improve on there.
Yeah, so there were 10 additional ideas on how you can personalize content using EdTech and AI. We know that this is a jam-packed episode. Hopefully you could pull one of these things out and give it a shot in your classroom. Till next time, go out and experience some EdTech, some AI, personalize your learning, and differentiate it for your students. Thanks for listening to the EdTech Throwdown. Do us a couple of favors. Subscribe to our podcast on any major podcast catcher such as Apple, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, and Stitcher. Go over to YouTube, search the EdTech Throwdown, subscribe to the channel. You can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The show's handle is EdTech Throwdown. You can connect with Geis at GeisGotTech, Nick at NickGotTech. You can write us an Apple Podcast review. You could tell your friends about www.edtechthrowdown.com. And lastly, go over and check out our friends over at the Teach Better Podcast Network, a network that we are so proudly involved with. Until next time, remember, go try some EdTech because we will do the research so you can teach your class.